was not pretty. I think that's probably the best way to describe the Jets' 30-10 loss to the Buffalo Bills. I am Connor Hughes. He is Zack Rosenblatt. This is Jets Final Drive. Thank you guys so much for joining us wherever you are. If that is X, appreciate you there. SNY.TV, appreciate you there. YouTube, that is the place to be. We say it every single week. Why, Zach? Because there's a live comment section where you can interact with us throughout the show. And if you have any thoughts, concerns, questions, or probably a lot of concerns coming off of this game, we will address some of them throughout the show. Our executive producer, Jeff Goldman, is in my ear. He's going to be reading that comment section and telling me what you guys are saying. Hopefully nice things, because you were mean to me last week. Zach, speaking of mean, this opener, not home opener for the Jets because it's week 2. I was in Dallas watching the game on my tablet. You and I were texting throughout the game. Ended up watching the all 22 on the flight back. It was as bad as it seemed on first watch as it did on rewatch.
I mean, I will say the post game was more pleasant because I was able to calmly just sit in my chair. Didn't have anybody sitting at the same table as me or standing over me and asking me how my lead was going. So it was nice and pleasant. And they brought some sweets out late after the game too, so you missed out on that too. So
try to butter you up after Aaron Glenn was mean to you.
Yeah. He wasn't mean to me. Let's calm down. We'll get into that later. But it was. I don't know. It's unfortunate because I think you and I were both pretty positive on the team after week 1. And this just felt like these seasons always do. It's a high and a very low in succession. Like it's the Jets can't have nice things of it all. And it happens. It comes to all of us. It comes to every coach. And they have to deal with the consequences of like how the fans react to it, and the radio and the headlines and all that stuff. But this is where we're at. It's week 2. It is a very Robert Saleh always used to say, and I know people get mad when you quote him, but he was always like, it's either the apocalypse or you won the Super Bowl every week, and it's very true. And this feels like the apocalypse, and maybe they'll play well this next week. It is very early in the season, but this was not promising, and a lot of the problems that we were concerned about going into the season were exacerbated this week, and it
was everything, Zach. It was everything. I mean, I thought it was reminiscent a bit of the early Robert Saleh years, where you have a defense that. I mean, look, Josh Allen didn't tear the Jets up in any way, shape, or form. In fact, when I went over the box score, I was like, wait a minute, do I only have like a quarter listed or a half listed? I mean, he was under 200 passing yards for the day. Did have the really nice run. It was the ground game that really got going, but it was a defense that held its own at moments, but then ended up breaking. A big reason why it broke was because the offense was completely inept as I think we've seen in a very long time. And we covered the Zach Wilson years. I mean, I wrote down the penalties. They were there, 5 for 35. Including several of the egregious fashion. We'll get to Michael Clemens in a bit. They lost the turnover battle again. And I wrote down some words just to describe what I thought they looked like. I have unprepared, uninterested, checked out. I thought they were out-physicaled. I thought they were out-coached. I thought they were outplayed. And Tony Romo on the broadcast, shout out to Connie who tweeted this out, and I went back and heard it for myself. He compared it to Alabama versus Middle Tennessee State. I mean, that's just, it's terrible. And I think what's most frustrating about this loss, if you're a Jets fan, if it's most disheartening about this loss, if you're a Jets fan, there's going to be highs and lows when you're a team that is with a new coach and rebuilding and trying to change its culture. But you came off the quote-unquote moral victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. This was a Bills team that defensively got gashed a week ago against the Baltimore Ravens. I know the Jets aren't the Baltimore Ravens, but this Bills team was without Ed Oliver, Taron Johnson, and the Jets did absolutely nothing against him. I mean, it was bad. It was as bad as you can imagine. And from a handful of fans that texted me that were at the game, completely lifeless. And maybe you can comment on it. Completely lifeless in the stadium.
I mean, I would actually say there was a lot of Bills fans there, frankly. And I'm not even saying that as a criticism of Jets fans. Like I get it. But it was loud for the Bills. Like I went down. You and I kind of both do this when we can. Like if it's a game that's out of hand, try to go down towards the locker room. Before the players all leave, so you can kind of see them coming off the field and things like that. And I heard loud cheers at one point, and I looked on the TV, and the Bills had a big play again or something like that. Like I don't remember the exact context, but it was like it was tough. Like it was right out of the gate. And again, I know you mentioned we're gonna get into the Clemens thing. Like that was kind of the start of it all, the Clemens penalty, and that first quarter. Once they went down 10-0, it it wasn't over them, but it felt like we might be heading towards something here, because this kind of like into what you and I talked about before the season, which is how is this team going to handle it when they fall behind by a lot and they have to throw the ball? And that's exactly what happened. I mean, Fields wasn't looking great before they fell behind by a lot, but this is the problem. Like if the other team knows you're going to run it every play, you need to have a lead most of the time, or at least the game needs to be close. And when it wasn't, they kind of just fell apart.
And let's talk about Justin Fields, Zach, because I feel like that's where we're going to start every single show. It's going to be the talking point whenever you have a quarterback that's a little bit uncertain. It was so good in that opener against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And for Fields here against the Bills, it was so bad. And I think this was somewhat of my concern because no team shows anything in the preseason. And they run their offense in training camp, but no one has film to that aside from, the coaches on the current team, and no one's going to leak that elsewhere. I wanted to know what Fields was going to look like weeks 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 once there was film of what a Tanner Engstrand offense was going to look like. How was he going to play? How is this offense going to work? And from a quarterbacking perspective, the offense I thought still worked. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I went back and I watched the All-22. The passing concepts were there for them. Players were open for Justin Fields. He unfortunately showed against the Buffalo Bills everything he showed us for a month and a half of training camp. This was the quarterback that we saw. When receivers are open and he throws to them, it's inaccurate passes. There are times when guys are open right in front of him, right in front of his eyes. All he has to do is throw the ball, and he clutches and he holds it, and then he starts moving around, and then the pressure gets in and they take sacks. I mean, the numbers, honestly, Zach, they're egregious. I mean, it's one of the worst quarterbacking performances I've seen, and we were there for Zach Wilson in New England. 3 of 11 passing, 27 yards, 4 rushes for 49 yards, but 27 of them came on one play. He fumbled. Again, though, the guys are open. The QBR actually is the most wild number. He had a 1.1 QBR, which is actually not the worst game in recent memory for the Jets, because Aaron Rodgers had a 1.0 rating versus the Bills a year ago. Sam Darnold in his infamous ghost game was a 1.1. Again, first series, Garrett Wilson open on that initial third down, a play that was very similar to me to the one that he scored in the rain against the Chicago Bears from Mike White. Bad pass, incomplete. Arian Smith on the sideline route, he's open, the pass goes high, Smith has to try to jump up, nearly makes the grab, just can't get his second foot down. And then even Garrett Wilson on a give-up play on second or third down, on a little crossing route, it's behind him, he has to twill it and he can't get it. The Jets are not going to win many games when they get quarterback performances like this. I think it's alarming because, again, this is what we saw in camp.
I mean, I'd say the most Jet stat ever is that I think he's had 46 starts. His performance in week 1 was his best ever EPA per attempt. His performance in week 2 was his worst ever EPA per attempt. He had literally his best and his worst performances back to back. So you have to wonder, like, what is the real Justin Fields? And, we're going to have to get into this probably more in detail in this pod, but we don't even know if he's going to be there for week 3. So, it was concerning. I think he showed enough in week 1 to say, like, if they can recapture that magic, then you have something there. I'm not ready to say he had a terrible performance, he's going to be this bad the rest of the season, but it's just something you have to keep in the back of your mind. Like, historically, he struggled with accuracy and processing. I mean, to have 27 passing yards in an NFL game is pretty hard to do. And he missed some time at the end, and Tyrod Taylor came in and immediately led them down the field. I know it was against backups and all that stuff, but he has to be better. He knows it. I think there was a couple other bad throws too. He had the one to Isaiah Davis before halftime where he threw it behind him and it was incomplete. And, they just had nowhere to go. And once they fell behind, they did what the Jets did a lot last year, which is they just were not able to figure it out. They fell apart. A lot of their mistakes happened in the first quarter, and they just were not able to recover from that. And it happened on both sides of the ball. Like, the defense, should be said, was a disaster too, and I know we're going to get into that. But Fields is concerning, and this is, again, I don't want to infringe too much on our future conversation in this pod, but Tyrod Taylor, if he starts on Sunday and the offense looks better than it did a week ago, then it's going to get loud, because it always does when the backup quarterback 100%. Plays well.
And especially because Tyrod Taylor's beloved. I mean, he's a beloved player. But the other concerns here too, Zach, is like you can justify poor performances from a quarterback when they're consistently under duress and when they're running for their life and when the pass rush is all over them and it's just they have no chance of doing anything. It was similar to Monday Night Football watching C.J. Stroud, where Todd Bowles, who the Jets are going to see this week, was dialing up pressure after pressure after pressure and really making his life hard. That wasn't necessarily the case here. I mean, there was some pressure from the Bills. They had 7 total pressures, but the Steelers a week ago had 10. The time to throw, 3.34 seconds versus the Bills. It was 3.38 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The difference, again, I go back to this. The passing concepts worked. Receivers were open. Garrett Wilson was open. There were times where Johnson was open. Mason Taylor was open. Arian Smith was open. The passes just weren't there. And the concern is that, and you can say it's one game, 100%. Week 1, just one game. Week 2, just one game. But if we're going by sample size, if we're going by, who is Fields? Is he closer to option A or closer to option B? What we saw throughout camp, why the preseason show that we did here, and we kept saying, what's your biggest concern with the Jets going into the year? Biggest concern with Jets going into the year? It was always Justin Fields. Why? And it was because the player that we saw on Sunday against the Bills is the one we saw in the end of July, all throughout August, and in the preseason. And you hope he gets it back together, but if the run game keeps getting shut down, Zach, I mean, you have to be able to throw the ball. You have to be able to throw the ball, and I don't think the Jets showed any ability to do that whatsoever against the Bills team that was absolutely destroyed through the air against the Ravens a week ago.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. I don't know if I have that much more to even add on it, but like was the concern coming into the year. At the end of the day, what might wind up happening with this team and this offense is when they go against really good teams and really well-coached teams, their offense is not going to play as well. And when they go against not as well-coached teams, they are. And that it's kind of like, this feels like it's going to be on both sides of the ball, a 2021 version of the Jets, even though top to bottom, this roster is significantly more talented. And, you have the quarterback question again. He's the Zach Wilson in this situation, and I know that's sacrilegious to suggest, but, I think that Fields needs to show more, and the Tyrod of it all is going to change the conversation a bit if Tyrod plays well on Sunday. Like, there's just no bones about it.
And it sounds like Tyrod is going to play, Zach, because that concussion, we know that Justin Fields is in the concussion protocol. Aaron Glenn said that it's going to be tough to throw him out there if he doesn't play on Wednesday and he doesn't play on Thursday. We've said this all throughout the summer, though, and Aaron Glenn has stressed this all throughout the summer. They have the utmost confidence in Tyrod Taylor. This is a guy who has been there, done that. He has such respect. And I said this a couple of times throughout SNY, social media, things like that. He actually received captaincy votes a year ago as the Jets' backup quarterback. That's how beloved he is. And I actually believe, because anytime you have a quarterback change, when you go from the starter to the backup, first string to second string, you kind of always have like a change in philosophy. Very rarely do things stay the same.
Yeah.
Also, even more rarely do things get potentially better. I think the Jets might be a more challenging team against the run when you have Justin Fields out there. But Tyrod Taylor is a better passer. He's a better thrower of the football than Justin Fields. He's limited in other ways, not as good throwing the ball, certainly not as durable, even though that's kind of ironic to say because he's filling in because Fields is hurt. But he is a player that the moment he steps out there, and if he does start against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Jet fans, get ready for the deep shots. Like that is coming. That's how this offense is going to change with Tyrod Taylor out there, is that he is going to hold the ball a little too long. Sometimes that's going to lead to him taking shots. Sometimes that might lead to him getting hurt. But he's going to do it because he's going to give his guys an opportunity to stretch the ball down the field. He's going to give Garrett Wilson a chance to go out there. Arian Smith, you haven't really seen too many go balls to him. Those are coming if Tyrod Taylor is throwing. This stat I dug up, absolutely insane. So the last time Tyrod Taylor started a semi-chunk of games was in 2023 with the Giants. Started 5 games, he went 2-3. In those 5 games, Zach, he attempted 27 passes of 20-plus yards. 15% of his attempts were of 20-plus yards. He went 11 of 27 on those attempts, 424 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Zach, that ranked 31st in the NFL that year. 31st, he had the 31st most 20-plus yard attempts, and he played 5 games. 5 games, and he's just chucking them deep. That's what you're going to see. Now, again, you have some concerns with holding the ball so long, letting guys get down the field, and then, boom, taking a shot, and suddenly Tyrod Taylor's hurt as well. But it's going to be a more aggressive approach with Tyrod. They still want to run the ball, but it's going to be more aggressive with Tyrod Taylor, more stretching the field, and it would not surprise me at all if you see some more explosive plays and the passing attack look better with Taylor out there as opposed to Fields.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how much Tanner Engstrand's play calling tendencies would change, because they went pretty conservative in week 1 with Justin Fields. I will like Tyrod. To your point, like it's very boom or bust with him. At his best, he can air it out, but when those plays aren't hitting, I don't know if he's the best at like accuracy in the immediate areas either. So it's that's interesting. And Todd Bowles is somebody they're going to be going against this week, and he's someone that Tyrod has actually had some success over the years. 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 4-2 record. Justin Fields in 2 games against Todd Bowles, 0-2, 1 touchdown, 5 interceptions, and they lost those games by 45 points combined. So Todd Bowles is somebody that's going to scheme up and make you uncomfortable as a quarterback. Like for all, whatever faults he had as a Jets head coach, he's a really good defensive play caller and schemer. And Tyrod is a little harder to prepare for because he's a little bit of a wild card, which can be good or bad. So I'm curious to see what the offense looks like with him in it, because they were letting the shots come to them in week 1. Tyrod Taylor is going to take the shots even if they're not there. So,
Arian Smith is going to be the most beneficial to this, because I think you're going to see
Tyrod and Arian had some chemistry in camp, by the way. Like Arian was catching a lot of balls from Tyrod in camp.
That might be a juicy little bet. What do you think anytime touchdown scorer Arian Smith is? Maybe we can get Jeff Goldman, our executive producer. That's his mid-show homework, is find out on. We're not going to name drop any specific betting websites yet, but just find a couple odds for Arian Smith anytime touchdown score, or maybe Arian Smith first touchdown score. I bet you could make a pretty penny on that. Let's move on a little bit, because said I reviewed the All-22. Was worried, get Phil Montana Engstrand, things are going to change. Oh, or is the whole offense going to fall apart? Passing concepts, guys were open. Fields just missed them. So check mark there. That's a minor win from the play caller. Rushing attack, Zach, terrible. Bad. Very, very bad. And I think that's because, again, people saw how the Jets ran the ball against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Jets tried to run the ball basically exactly the same against the Buffalo Bills. Only the Buffalo Bills took what the Jets did against the Pittsburgh Steelers, devised a game plan for it, and they went right at it. There wasn't a ton of stacked boxes. They stacked it only 20% of the time. But what they were doing was run blitzing. That's what you saw on like Milano with the second play where he blew Breece Hall up. That would set up the 3rd and 11 after a 3-yard rush. That's run blitzing. You have some guys dropping, other guys going. You're attacking holes and things like that. That's what they were doing. Hall finished 10 rushes for 20 yards. He was minus 1.61 rushing yards per attempt over expected, which, Zach, you were telling me this. 5th worst in the NFL. Braylon Allen was a complete non-factor. The Jets basically phased him out of the offense with 2 rushes for 11 yards. Fields had an okay day statistically, 5 rushes, 49. But again, 27 of those yards came on one play, so he's 4 for 22 on the other ones. The Jets want to run the ball. The Jets have to be able to run the ball because of their limitations throwing, not just with some of the personnel where they don't necessarily have a true number 1 receiver and Mason Taylor still developing and things like that. But if you're going to be sitting there in 3rd and longs and 2nd and longs and be forced to pass, I think you're just going to have a repeat of what we saw on Sunday against these other teams the Jets are going to face.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is kind of what happened last year, but Rodgers just didn't want to run it anyway. But when you fall behind by 2 possessions, it is hard to run the ball. Like, that is just a fact. And so, like, I think the Jets want to be like a, poor man's Baltimore Ravens, where you're leaning on the run, but you have a quarterback who can make all the throws, and you trust in his ability to make difficult throws and things like that. And the Jets are the poor man's version of that because they aren't able to completely get there. So that's the concern I have with this offense. I just want to throw this out there. I think we realize why Josh Reynolds he shouldn't be as important to this offense as he is. Alan Lazard went in there, and there was a play. I think it was Tre'Davious White. The lack of effort, or either the poor technique or both, that he put on a block on Tre'Davious White was like, I hope they're showing that tape in the room this week, because that, like, what purpose does Alan Lazard serve here if he cannot block? And he was able to blow up that run. It was like a 5-yard loss at a key moment of the game. So, like, they need their receivers to block better. And Josh Reynolds was out last week. I don't know what his status is for this week. Lazard, I don't really know what purpose he serves anymore around here. He played, I think he played for like 10 or 20 snaps. He played 20 snaps and he ran 10 routes, and they didn't throw the ball very much, but he certainly did not get targeted at all. So I don't really know Alan Lazard's purpose. I just could not stop thinking about that play, because when I saw the highlight of the way he blocked him, and there was a lot of effort issues in this game, I would say. Like, there's stuff on defense we'll get to in a little bit, but there's some of these players, like, if you want to talk about discipline, I know there's certain players that should that they can't afford to bench, but there's some that they can, and Al Lazard should not be on the football field. I'm sorry.
No, he's on there. Again, he was inactive in the opener because he doesn't play special teams. Now you have the Reynolds injury, so you put him in the lineup, and he doesn't create any separation. So if he's not going to be a factor passing, and he can't run block, and he's also not a great locker room guy, like I'm with you. I don't understand what purpose he's serving. I just don't. It's a wild deterioration from him, and he wasn't the only one who's kind of deteriorated, Zach, because some of these offensive line numbers, and again, it's 2 weeks, so you're not going to panic or anything like that, but we were worried about the AVT absence. We were, because of what it was going to mean on the right side of the offensive line with now Myers and Tittman and a rookie at Armand Membu. Armand Membu has been a stud. Like, this is now 2 weeks in a row where I know no one was great against the Buffalo Bills, but Membu was not a problem. Actually, the problems are pretty much everywhere else. Olu Fashanu, we're not married here to Pro Football Focus grades, the 58.3 mark. I mean, sometimes I don't know always how they come up with that. But the biggest issue is his efficiency rating of 91.1 is fifth worst in the NFL among all offensive linemen. So if you can't rely on your left tackle, and also John Simpson has a 53.0 Pro Football Focus grade. He's allowed 4 pressures. Joe Tittman, you're going to have to just ride him in and out. 51.2 Pro Football Focus grade through 2 weeks. You're going to have to ride that just because he's playing out of position at guard. But if the tape is out on the Jets on how to stop the run, and this is what they're going to have to try to just keep doing, they're going to play some bad teams down the road, which could theoretically they'll still be able to run against them. But running the ball every single play, like Jet fans got all wild and riled up about, like, yeah, we're going to ground and pound. Ground and pound only works when you're in like a one-possession game. When you're down 2 scores, 3 scores in the third quarter or 2 scores in the fourth, and you have to put the game on your quarterback's back, it's not going to work, and it certainly did not work for the Jets here in week 2, especially with that offensive line. All right, appreciate everywhere you guys are watching us. If that is X, love you guys there. SNY.TV, love you guys there. Facebook as well, and also YouTube. And the benefit of the YouTube is that you can interact live with the show throughout the show. Comment section there, best place to watch us. We say it every single week. Got Jeff Goldman, our executive producer, back monitoring this throughout the show so we can kind of get to some questions that they're throwing out there. Like this one, which we're absolutely going to get to, Zach. It is about Michael Clemens. Do you think the Jets should have benched him for a few series after that personal foul call against him when he hit Josh Allen a little high? I think the scolding was enough personally because I don't think it was a penalty. It wasn't. He went a little high on Josh Allen, but he flopped. Again, you can say, oh, Josh Allen's a flopper. You got to know that stuff. But it wasn't that aggressively late. It wasn't the worst penalty we've ever seen Michael Clemens commit. It was just really well sold by Josh Allen.
I'll push back on, they're going to call that penalty every single time in the modern NFL. And so he put himself in that position. He dove at him when he already threw the ball, and he tackled him high. So they were going to throw that flag. Whether it should be a roughing the passer is not the question. It's whether they're going to call it. And so he doesn't get the benefit of the doubt because he's made the mistakes on roughing the passer over and over and over again. You know, I wrote about him today. I don't need to go too crazy. But should we have the Clemens convo now, or do you want to save that for when we get diving into the defense, Connor?
You can do it now. I don't have that much to say on him. Like he's a backup defensive end. That's what he is. And if he's playing 15 to 20 snaps a game, probably more closer to 15 as a backup defensive end, he's fine. He's okay enough at setting an edge. He can't do it consistently, and if you put him out there for 40 plays, that's where he's going to bite inside. He's a decent enough special teams player. He's not completely inept at rushing the passer. He'll occasionally get some rush or some push. I mean, he is what he is. The problem is that the Jets, and now because Jermaine Johnson's dealing with the ankle and they don't have anything else, is like he's back to playing more than he's supposed to play. And because Will McDonald is absolutely atrocious against the run with a 29 Pro Football Focus rush defense grade, Zach, which is second worst in the NFL behind a cornerback. In fact, he's the only person in the bottom 5 of run defense grade who is a defensive lineman. Everyone else is like corners and safeties and things like that. He has to play more. You can't play Will McDonald on first down and sometimes second down because he's just a total liability in run defense. So you got to put Michael Clemens out there. Now you can say, okay, they should have signed somebody else, but like it's poor roster construction. But I don't think this is a Clemens fault. He's just again being used more than he should be being used.
I mean, I would say what's Clemens' fault is that he hasn't learned from his mistakes with the over-aggressive penalties. He literally did this in the preseason. He did this last season. I mean, I'll never forget his belly flop again in the Bills game last year where the play was already over and he jumps over the top. And that's the problem. Like mistakes get highlighted, especially in these losses this one wasn't close, this last one, but the first quarter, like, he has that roughing the passer, and you could say what you want about whether it should have been. It was always going to be called. And so they immediately score a touchdown. They go up 7-0. Justin Fields fumbles the next drive, and then all of a sudden those 2 shots in the foot killed them. And I don't think he lost them the game, and I don't think he's lost them games, but he is a liability when he's out there. And to your point, and I wrote about this today, like, everybody wants Aaron Glenn because he cut Xavier Gipson, and because he talks about how if you do plays that lead to losing, you're going to be off the field. They all want him to do that to somebody like Michael Clemens or whoever else makes mistakes, Brandon Stevens or Tony Adams. Tony Adams is more defensible, but he wants them to do that. But the reality is, like, if you take Michael Clemens out of the game, their options are Brady McGregor, and Tyler Barron wasn't even an option. He was a healthy scratch. And those 2 guys, whatever you want to say about them, they're not ready to be run defenders in the NFL. And, the flip side is guys are like, well, what do you have to lose? Just see what these guys can offer. They're young players. I don't think you really can just, do that. And the problem is what you said. Like, ultimately, he's best suited as a 4th or 5th defensive end, not your number 3. And he might have to start this week if Jermaine Johnson's out again. I mean, he leads the team in snaps at defensive end through 2 weeks. And that's the problem is roster construction at the end of the day. And Joe Douglas deserved criticism for this last year, and he got it. And Darren Muji, until he addresses it, deserves it this year. Like, you went into a season with a defensive end in Jermaine Johnson, who just tore his Achilles a year ago, with Will McDonald, who can't play on running downs, and you went into the season with Michael Clemens as your 3rd defensive end and Brady McGregor as your 4th. And so that's, Muji did a great job of addressing defensive tackle, which, by the way, those guys have looked really good. Juwan Briggs was one of the few standouts in this game. Harrison Phillips, I think, has been solid. I think Quinnen's been good. Like, the defensive tackle room all of a sudden looks like a strength, and the defensive end and wide receiver are the 2 positions where you're like, what were the Jets thinking this offseason?
Yeah, and again, Clemens gets the heat. He wasn't the only issue with this team, Zach. I mean, I think going into this game, after Aaron Rodgers threw for the 4 touchdowns, and the interesting thing about Rodgers, he was throwing to guys who were wide open. So I don't think this was one of those things with Rodgers 2 weeks ago where it was like, oh, just drop back and just pick apart the Jets secondary. I mean, there were guys that struggled like Brandon Stevens, who struggled again against Buffalo, but that wasn't it. The run defense, despite the fact of Briggs and despite the fact of Phillips and Quinnen Williams playing pretty well, I mean, it was bad. But I think what was most interesting about the run defense, and we've seen this in the past with the Jets, is that there are times when there are just gaping holes. And there are running backs that aren't touched until they're 5 yards down the field or 6 yards down the field, and you're just like, man, they're getting blown off. And that's usually a result of your interior defensive line being poor and your defensive line being bad and your run schemes being poor and lazy efforts or bad design and bad scheme, and you're just getting blown off the ball, right? That wasn't the case. You look at these numbers here, and when you actually dive into them, they're insane. 43 carries, 224 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's what they did on the ground, the Buffalo Bills against the Jets. They averaged 4.1 yards after contact. If a running back just averages 4.1 yards a carry, you're like, man, that's pretty damn good. That's really good yard per carry average. They did that after contact. 178 of their 224 yards, so almost 80%, 79% exactly of their rushing yards came after contact. The Jets missed 10 tackles against the Buffalo Bills. And I don't know exactly, the 2 leaders of it were Quincy Williams and Andre Sisco, each with 2 apiece. But this is just one of those things where Quincy Williams, I think, is struggling a lot right now. There's flash plays and his big hits that are going to have fans going crazy, and he'll be doing his celebration. But it almost reminds me of year 1 Quincy Williams, where when you watch him, the 1% of his plays or 2% of his plays stand out as like, oh my God, look at that highlight. But then you look at the rest, and he's out of position. He's not in the right spot. He's missing a tackle. Guys are running through him, which leads to bad. Jamie and Sherwood, since he's got the biggest contract, has been one of the worst middle linebackers in the entire NFL. And when you have that problem in the middle of your defense, Zach, everything else falls apart. And I go back to this where when Robert Saleh was fired, and the Jets ultimately, and then Jeff Ulbrich too, and the Jets ultimately ended up bringing in Aaron Glenn, I had a defensive coach from another team call me and say, hey, this probably isn't going to be great news for Quincy and Jamian. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, they're going to cut him, they're going to move on from me? He goes, no. He goes, the way those 2 guys play, and the reason why Robert and Brick were able to get so much out of them, is their defense was go. Was no thinking. It's Jamian's got to get everyone lined up and positioned and all that stuff. He's a very cerebral player. But once the ball is snapped, there's minimal thinking. It is see ball, get ball, attack. With Steve Wilks and Aaron Glenn, there's less of that. It's almost the ball is snapped, read, then react. That's their defense. And again, this is very elementary terms just to help make it as clear as possible. It is read and react, not just attack. You can tell that's taken Quincy back a step. You've taken Sherwood back a step. And I don't know necessarily how it's going to get better.
I mean, look, the tackling was a point of conversation this offseason because they finally tackled in training camp. And like you said, they just missed 10 tackles. And Aaron Glenn, his analysis of it was that it was a lot of over pursuit, which he says is correctable, which he's right. And there was a lot of that. Guys just sailing past guys or incorrectly approaching. But, I think of a few plays in that game that were alarming. One is the James Cook 44-yard touchdown run. Quincy Williams badly misses the tackle, and then on his way to the end zone, it looked to me, and I don't know if you saw when you went back and watched all 22, it looked to me like Brandon Stevens was not really running full speed on that play to try and get him towards the end of that run. That was an alarming one. There's the one where Sauce has Josh Allen on a blitz, gets right at him, and basically sails right past him. And, there's Andre Sisco on the Elijah Moore touchdown run, your old buddy, Elijah Moore. Andre Sisco missed that badly. There's a couple more too, but it's just like they're making the same mistakes that they always did, and that was supposed to change with this coaching staff. And the back end has been rough. Like Tony Adams had a bad penalty himself. He had a penalty on 3rd and long with the defensive pass interference that got a first down. Those safeties have struggled. Brandon Stevens has struggled. MC2 has not played well. Sauce, I don't think, had a great game actually either. You mentioned the linebackers, and so that leaves you with Jermaine, who I think has been good, and the defensive tackles who have been fine. But this is a team that didn't give up 30 points in back-to-back games at all in 2022, 2023, or 2024. They gave up more rushing yards in this game than they had since 2021. And so it feels like you're back to square one on defense, but this isn't the 2021 defense. You cover that team. I didn't. I came in the year after that. But this team has Sauce Gardner. This team has Quincy Williams. It has Jamie Sherwood. It has Quiddy Williams. It has Will McDonald. It has Jermaine Johnson. That is talent. And whatever you think about even a Stevens or an MC2 or a Andre Sisco, even those guys are probably better than the group they put on the field in 2021. And so, it's fair to criticize the scheming, the coaching, the effort, the technique, all that stuff. You would hope that with a staff that includes Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilkes, they can figure out their problems and fix them. But, if this team is going to have to be in shootouts every week, they're not going to win a lot of games. If you're a running team, you can't win shootouts. That's just not going to happen. That's just not how the NFL works. So, I don't think they're going to be a team that gives up 30 points every week. You hope. But again, we're going to get in the Bucs game later, but that's an offense that they don't really match up well with. And, even the Dolphins, who I think are a bad team, they have speed at receiver, and they have a running back who's very, very fast. And, it doesn't get easier as the season goes along, and they haven't proven ability to improve on their mistakes yet. And so this is what Aaron Glenn's supposed to be good at, responding to adversity, fixing the problems, fixing the discipline, fixing the tackling issues, fixing the penalties. And we need to see it. It's only been 2 weeks. He deserves time to fix it. But week 2 was alarming. There was problems in week 1 that were alarming. They had different problems in week 2. So now you had pass defense problems in week 1. You had run defense problems in week 2. So what is this defense's identity? I have no idea.
Well, they're top heavy, Zach. That's the problem. The pass problems didn't go away. Brandon Stevens was bad again. Michael Carter was bad again. The safeties were bad again. But what are you going to do? You can't keep benching people. There's no linebackers or corners or safeties or defensive ends to bench and to move on from these guys. So it's you got to figure it out with what you have. This is a topic we're gonna touch upon this now because I think Jet fans have picked up on this. Locally, people have picked up on this, and it's essentially the way that Aaron Glenn talks and handles the media in his press conferences and how he talks to people after the game. And it came to light, I think, when he said, what was it, gotta watch the tape for 3 consecutive answers, providing absolutely no insight at all. We actually have the clip here of you asking him a perfectly fine question, and we're going to play it now, that he clearly did not like. I think we're playing the clip. Oh, never mind. So we were going to play a clip. It was basically about shooting. You can tell the story, Zach, because I was in Dallas. You were the one who answered that question.
Yeah. I mean, I asked him he was doing the gotta watch the tape thing. So I asked him what his view was of the passing game in this game because it was really bad. And he looked at me. I would say I described it as he shot daggers into my soul. I would say he looked at me like befuddled at he raised his arms. He's like, my view, it was bad. And then he like wanted to.
I think we got the clip.
Oh, we got it. Okay.
Yeah, we got it.
So I don't have to reenact it anymore. Okay.
I know this is an instant coffee league. I know from the media to the fans, everybody expects this, when you just start, okay, we're going to the Super Bowl. But we've all played Legos before. And we all know that, man, you have to make sure everything is aligned and you keep stacking it day by day by day.
Not the clip, but it was about the daggers. Like it was him staring daggers into your eyes and basically being very annoyed with it. Here's my thing, and this is big picture. So I am totally fine if somebody asks a dumb question in a press conference. I know there are no dumb questions. No, that's horse poo-poo. There is absolutely dumb questions.
First poop reference, nice.
There we go. Absolutely dumb questions. And I have no problem with when you ask something dumb or you do something dumb at a press conference, the coach calling you out for it. And because, look, we're critical of these guys. We rip these guys. We tear these guys apart. You can't suddenly get all upset and in your feels when they give it back to you. No problem with that whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. The problem that I have with Glenn, and I don't think he totally realizes this yet, but when things are going well, he can totally have this like badass, I'm not going to take anything from the media. I'm just going to give it right back. I'm not answering anything. He can go I got to watch the tape. I got to watch the tape. He's going to be mean to you on a totally valid question. It's fine when you're winning. No one's going to care. Bill Belichick literally did it for 2 decades. But what happened when suddenly Bill Belichick wasn't winning? What happened when suddenly the losses were piling up? When a coach is standing atop a podium and they are addressing questions on why the team lost, they are speaking directly to their fan base. They don't see me asking a question. They don't see Zach or Samini or Costello or anybody else in that media room asking a question. They just see the coach standing up there and responding to it. And when there is no clarity given to questions that are driving a fan base insane, and there is no clarity given to questions that are on the fans' mind, the fans are going to get mad, and the fans are going to get annoyed, and the fans are going to start to believe that you don't know what you're doing. And this is exactly what happened a few years ago with Adam Gase when he was the team's head coach. Gase was one of the most intelligent, tremendous at explaining the why. He loved it. Like, he truly was a coach at heart, where if you had to question any X's and O's thing, he would break it all down for you. I told you, he used to do film reviews with the media to explain why things worked, to explain why things didn't. He had a beef with one reporter in the media, and anyone who's a Jet fan can piece together who it was. When that reporter would hijack press conferences and ask him question after question after question, Gase was so annoyed with this run reporter that he would just give it back to him. And he'd be short, he'd cut off, he'd give him attitude, all that stuff. He was tremendous with 99% of the other reporters that were out there. There was one guy he had an issue with. But that tone that he took with that person, the way that he answered that person's questions, how short he was with that person, it made fans develop an opinion and a reputation of him because they didn't understand the whole picture. I don't want that to happen with Aaron Glenn, because there are times where he answers questions thoughtfully and he is helpful. But then these other times where he just, for whatever reason, decides, screw the media. And I don't know if it's because Robert Saleh was so helpful and so he's just trying to do the 180 with us. I don't know. But I can see this going very poorly for him if the Jets don't start winning. And I don't understand why he's so combative. I don't understand why he's so angry with us all the time. And it's not all the time, but it's just, I can see this going wrong. I can see this taking a turn that you don't necessarily want it to take. And this example here against the Bills, this was the first time where I was like, that's not good. That's not good.
What I will give him credit for is he did come back on Monday, and he did, after watching the tape, give us actual answers. I know there are coaches that will do that whole, I got to watch the tape, and then the next day they're like, I'm not talking about the last game anymore. So I'll give him credit for that. And I don't blame him for being angry after a loss and not wanting to answer certain questions, and you don't have to answer all of them. But to your point, and Connor Rogers actually made this point in the post-game show, I believe.
On SNY? On that Jets post-game live on SNY?
Sorry, on SNY. Also a part of the Badlands Podcast Network with me. But we're both coworkers with him in a way. He made the point of, when you say you got to watch the tape, you're leaving it open for us to go then into the locker room and try to get answers out of the players without knowing what Aaron Glenn said or is thinking about how certain things happened. And so the players are going to say their own opinions and say their own feelings. And then if those start to conflict or if those become controversial, like, that is something he could have prevented by addressing it himself. Like, I get that he can't, like, get into the nitty gritty necessarily in the immediate aftermath of a game, but, like, he's watching the game. He's seeing these plays happen. He has a perspective on it. And so, like the James Cook touchdown run, like, he knew what went wrong there. They have a tablet on the sideline. I saw him at various points in my binoculars. I saw him going to the tablet after various plays. You don't have to give us a detailed response. You don't have to explain in detail what happened, what the breakdowns were immediately after the game, because you need to gather your thoughts and your feelings. But, at the end of the day, to your point, like, I know fans laughed all summer when, he'd, bark back at a question we had. I actually kind of enjoyed it a lot of the times in these press conferences because he keeps you on your toes and you have to phrase the question the right way. And I think that is good for us as reporters, where we have to think a little bit more about how we phrase our questions. He doesn't like to be led in a certain direction. He doesn't like, sometimes a question has an agenda or a motive, and I don't think he likes those, and that's fine. But in the post-game show in particular, I think fans, they love this kind of thing all offseason, but when the losses start happening, they do not like it as much. And Saleh was like kind of the opposite. Saleh would say things, everything was flowery, everything was positive, and he went with that over and over and over again, which is good in the beginning until you start losing. And then the flip side of that is what Aaron Glenn did the other day. And again, he's a new head coach. He's never had to do these post-game press conferences before as a coach. So he's learning. I would think the PR staff is talking to him about how to approach it or giving their thoughts. And I don't know how they feel about this specifically, but, I'm curious to see if it changes as time goes on. Because I think you saw the next day, he was much more upbeat, cheery, positive. Obviously, he slept on it and gave us more thoughtful and detailed answers about what went wrong in that game. And so now I'm curious to see, if they're going to get killed again at some point this year, how is he going to handle that? And even more than that, how is he going to handle it if and when, I shouldn't say when, but if Justin Fields' questions start coming about, did you consider benching him? Did you consider benching him? Is Tyrod going to be your starter? Who's going to be your starter? So how is he going to handle those? Some have handled it well. Some have not handled it so well. I've covered everything in terms of that. And so that's always been my question with him. Like, I maybe more than most had no issue with the way he answered questions for the most part before the season. Like I said, I kind of enjoyed it, but I've always said, like, how coaches handle it after losses, the things they say and their demeanor is fascinating, especially around here where talk radio, the New York Post back page, New York Daily News back page, they're going to jump on every single word and every single, the way you look and the way you talk and how you respond to questions. And, I think he needs to do a better job than he did on Sunday.
Yeah, it wasn't good. And I think it goes back to even during, Combine, where he said the goal is to win now, and now they're playing with Legos, and it's not to win now. It's, Rome wasn't built in a day, so it's kind of back and forth. Zach, I do have a question for you that came in from YouTube, which we appreciate anywhere you guys are watching. We say it's throughout the show. X, SNY.TV. YouTube, though, the place to be because of that live chat. And this one came in from Mr. Slippery. Great tag. Says, Zach, should I boo Aaron Rodgers? I'll hang up and listen.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers said he was okay with the boos after the game, so I think I was right in my stance about that. And by the way, not to get off track, I'll say this real quick. The Steelers looked like trash in week 2. Like, they looked really bad.
Yeah, which is more alarming for the Jets. Which is
alarming for the Jets, and also, like, those might be just two teams that are not good this year. So that was interesting to me. But yeah, boo Aaron Rodgers if he is playing the Jets every time.
You were on the conference call with Aaron Glenn. I was not because I was flying home from Dallas. There were three pretty big injuries that came out of this one. Tony Adams, Jermaine Johnson, and Fields. We talked about Fields dealing with the concussion. Glenn said if he doesn't practice Wednesday, Thursday, he's not going to go. I'm fairly certain we're going to see Tyrod Taylor. What was the update, Zach, on Johnson, and then what was the update on Adams?
Well, the update in the press conference was that there was no update yet, but Jermaine Johnson tweeted, I believe yesterday, prayer hands emojis, and he also said, like, you have no idea I forget what the exact phrasing was if you want to pull it up, but basically that he he didn't decipher exactly what he meant, but I imagine he avoided something bad, which I imagine is tied to the fact that he tore his Achilles almost a year ago to the day. We don't know which ankle it was that he got hurt. A lot of times with these things, the opposite ankle it winds up, or the opposite Achilles becomes more vulnerable because you're like favoring one more than the other. So maybe it's the other ankle. We have no idea. We'll find out more tomorrow from Aaron Glenn. That was a promising tweet. But I would say, just to head back to our earlier conversation, if you have to start Michael Clemens and you have to play Braden McGregor and Tyler Barron and Eric Watts significant snaps, then I have a lot of concerns about the defensive end group. And Tony Adams, he was not playing well again.
Neither is Cisco, though. That's the problem.
Neither is Cisco. Yeah. So, I mean, Malachi Moore, out of all the changes they can make, Malachi Moore feels like the easiest one to sub him in for Tony Adams. But, he is a rookie, and this pass defense has been bad, and I don't know. Is it too early to just, neg on the veterans on the team who have maybe a better grasp of what the defense looks like than the rookies do? But I'm game for giving He had more snaps late in the game when it was already over when Tony Adams went out. But Jermaine Johnson's the one I'm more concerned about, and Justin Fields, depending on, how this plays out with the offense. But I am concerned because that's been a concern since before the season is depth at defensive end. So if he can't go, that's not great, but we'll find out tomorrow.
It seemed, I think what it looks like is that they avoided worst case scenario with all of these guys, which isn't necessarily the case across the league. I mean, it was injury galore, especially at the quarterback position, where you got McCarthy now, JJ McCarthy of the Vikings. It looks like he's out 2 to 4 weeks. Jaden Daniels has a sprained knee. He's not going to play this Sunday, and knowing about sprained knees, that could easily be another 3-4 week injury. We know Fields has the concussion. Joe Burrow, 3 months, man. What a brutal blow that is for him with the turf toe. And that surgery thing, that's why there were so many alarms. And I know all these people, he rode off the cart with Fields. He rode off the cart. This is it. This is why. You saw Joe Burrow with the same injury that the Jets were fearful that Fields had back during training camp. You saw him walk back to the locker room, and now he's not going to play football the rest of the year because of the 3-month injury. And then Brock Purdy as well with the turf toe. With the Bengals, we're going to see how all these teams handle. But, hey, we might get to see old friend Mike White over there. He was one of the quarterbacks assigned to Cincy's practice squad. And if things don't go well with who's the backup in Cincy?
Jake Browning.
Browning, yeah, thank you. If things don't go well with Browning, maybe we get a chance to see Mike White throwing bombs to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. That would be fun, wouldn't it? At least it'd be fun for me. I love Mike White.
It's kind of perfect that it's the Bengals, too, because that's where the whole Mike White legend started, was against the Bengals. That's where Mike effing White started. And
you're right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's pretty funny that he wound up back there. I will say real quick here, I don't know if you saw the tweet I sent to our text thread. Another old friend is working out with the Jets today, apparently. Arthur Mallett.
Yes. Mollett.
That's a name for you.
I think it's Mollett. Unless I just said that
sorry.
wrong.
Well, see, I didn't cover him, so I didn't know how to say it right. But he was on the Ravens the last couple of years, so that's an interesting one.
I'm going to go ahead and say that he will not fix the secondary issues. That's
what?
That's not going to make things better. Speaking of that secondary, Zach, we're going to move on here and talk a little bit about a Week 3 game against old friend Todd Bowles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs are good. That is a good football team. Good for Todd Bowles, who's like one of the really, really good people in the NFL. At one point, actually, a couple years ago, it looked like he was going to be fired with Tampa Bay. They have a franchise quarterback, and Baker Mayfield has got a 96.6, almost 97 quarterback rating this year. 5 touchdowns, no interceptions through 2 games. Nice little two-headed rushing attack with Bucky Irving and White there. But I think the thing that scares me the most, and if there's no Tristan Wirfs, then you kind of like the idea of Will McDonald and Jermaine, if he plays, getting home and the Jets being able to pressure and dial up things and get to Mayfield and maybe limit that attack somewhat. If they can't get to Mayfield, though, and Mayfield can throw, Mike Evans, Abuka, the rookie, who's got 3 touchdowns already. Sterling Shepard and Chris Godwin should be back at some point. I don't know if it's going to be this week. But Shepard, since leaving the Giants, has had a career revitalization with the Buccaneers. Amika looks like he could literally be going for Offensive Rookie of the Year. And Mike Evans is Mike Evans. And one of those guys is going to be able to go up against our good buddy there, Brandon Stevens, who this year has not been playing well, which I don't know if it should come as any surprise because he's allowed 5, 2, 2, and 4 touchdowns the previous 4 years before joining the Jets and was already allowed 2. There's a chance this Buck offense goes off. And if the Jets can rush the passer, I like their chances. If they can't touch Baker Mayfield and can't put him on his back 3 or 4 times, it might be a shootout and at least a one-sided shootout.
I mean, the Bucs offense is multifaceted more than the first two teams they played. I mean, Bucky Irving is really, really talented. And Rashad White adds an element there, and Baker Mayfield's just a gamer. Yeah, so I have concerns. You know, I mean, I'm curious to see if I imagine Sauce would follow Mike Evans if I had to guess. And so you're leaving a boot.
That's a good matchup.
They do. That'd be a fun one. I believe they've played each other at one point. Maybe not. Actually, also old friend Bryce Hall is on the Bucks as well. But
yes, he is. Yes,
yeah,
really nice guy.
Yeah, fun fact. But you know, to your point about Todd, it's interesting seeing the way he's just like settled into just being like a solid NFL head coach. Like he's hired the right people. He had, you know, Liam Cohen was his OC last year, got a head coaching job. You know, I think their defense is actually pretty good, which is also part of my concern this week. I think they are an aggressive defense that's pretty talented. And yeah, I don't know. I think the line was 7 points, which is pretty big for a week 3 game. It is on the road for the Jets. But if you want to have any hope for this game, it's that the Bucs are going on a short week. It was a really like hard-fought game they played on Monday night. So you hope on a short week that the Jets they were on the road, I believe, too, on a short. So Bucs on a short week, that's like the Jets' hope. But I don't feel good about this matchup. And I'm curious, like, how do you think this team, this fan base, you know, in the building, how they respond if this team is 0-3? Because I know you're going to I think, if anything, maybe they don't freak out as much because you have the Dolphins coming up. But, like, Miami's been a house of horrors for this organization for a long time.
And they're not untalented. Like Miami.
Yeah, they're not untalented. They're bad. And actually, the Dolphins are going to be going on 10 days rest, too, for that game. So,
potentially different coach.
0-3, 0-4. Not saying we're, like, making any assumptions. Like, according to Jets history, there's a very good chance they win this game just because this is what they do. They win the ones they're not supposed to sometimes, and they get you fired up, and then you go and lose to a team like the Dolphins who you're supposed to beat. But the Bucs are beatable, but they are a playoff team. They are a contender. They are better than they were last year, I think. And I am concerned about the way they match up with this Jets team and this Jets team's weaknesses.
Yeah, that's the problem for me, Zach, with this one is I just don't – it's not one on paper that looks good. And I keep going back to the secondary. And if Jermaine can't play – you know the goal for the Bucs is going to be to establish the run, because they're going to look at this and say, like, if we can run the ball, we're going to slow down Will McDonald, or at the minimum get Will McDonald off the field, because Will's not going to be playing on 2nd and 3s. They're not going to have Will McDonald on the field on 2nd and 3s and 2nd and 2s. So if they can get Bucky Irving going a little bit to set themselves up with that, you can then play action. You know Braden McGregor's not getting home. You know Michael Clemens isn't going to get home. Maybe if Jermaine Johnson plays, he's still not going to be 100% with the ankle. And then you have, no matter how you shape it up, if Sauce follows Mike Evans, it's going to be Brandon Stevens against Emeka. And this guy, season for Brandon Stevens, he's been targeted 10 times, allowed 8 completions, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns, a 145.4 quarterback rating, which literally just is what he's done throughout his entire career. And this was like that, you know, I think I'm smarter than everybody else. When a team like the Baltimore Ravens, which wins 10-plus games every single year and is always one of the best teams in the entire NFL, when they say, you know what, we're done with this guy. We're done. We're giving up. We're not going to do it anymore. Usually it doesn't mean that you're suddenly going to fix it. So I'm concerned about this one for the Jets just because I don't like the way it looks on paper. If they want any chance, we've said it. They have to get to Baker Mayfield. They have to knock him down. All right, line right now, Zach, it's early, but that's what I love about picking these games early, although it hasn't made much of a difference for the picks because I have not gotten one right. 7 points. The Jets are 7-point road underdogs to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The first pick that we have is from Brookie, the baby bookie, who, like her dad, is 0 for 2 to start this. Let's roll the clip to see who Brooks got this week.
Okay, Brooke. Going to be honest with you, all right? First 2 games, not too great. You and Dad were both 0-2 picking. Now we got the Jets, first the Buccaneers, and old friend Todd Bowles. The Jets, look at Daddy. Brooke, okay, don't look. The Jets, they're 7-point underdogs, okay? So here we go. Who are you picking? The New York Jets or the Tampa Bay? Oh, show me. Who'd you pick? Flip it around. Hold it like that. That was a quick one. Is that the pick? All right.
I had to bribe her with a popsicle to get her to do that, by the way. She was like, no, I'm good. I'm like, what have you been? When I was doing the show prep, she was sitting next to me, like, coloring and stuff like that for like an hour. I'm like, all right, hon, now I'm going to do your pick. No, Daddy. I'm like, the hell does that mean? Like, what do you mean no? Like, I kind of need you. We're running low on time here.
Fair enough. She was holding out for some money there, I think. Or a popsicle.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, she's got to start winning some of these. I mean, right now it's, quote, fade the baby. I'm riding with Brooke, though. I have Buccaneers -7. I like the line all the way up to maybe double digits. I don't. Maybe Tampa Bay comes in flat. We've seen that from Todd Bowles teams. Like Todd Bowles is very susceptible to the trap game, 110%. I don't see the matchups there that are conducive to the Jets winning, especially if they are without Jermaine Johnson. If they have Jermaine, maybe they got a shot, but I'm worried about this one for the Jets. And 0-3 is not a good start heading into the House of Horrors of Miami.
I'll say Jets +7 just because I think maybe they're going to look past the Jets a little bit. And so, like I said, I think the Jets' best hope is that they come out flat, like you said, and maybe they're looking ahead to their next game. I don't know who they have next on their schedule, but I don't think the Jets win this game. I do think the Bucs win, but I can see the Jets covering, I would say.
Your pick's Jets? You're going Jets +7?
Jets +7, yeah.
Okay, I can see that. I mean, you're 1-1. Brooke and I are both 0-2. You're 1-1, so there's a chance for you to pull away with the picture. We'll have to get a trophy. And you'll put it in your backdrop if you win the picks for the.
That says I am better than Connor.
Yeah. Question here, Zach, which I think is a good one to end the show on for the last thing we're going to talk about here. Robert Papalia. I'm terrible with pronunciation, so I immediately apologize. Are we looking at a 4-13 football team right now with the Jets? I'll let you answer that one first.
I don't think so. I think this is going to be a team that is going to have a lot of games like week 2, and they're going to have some games like week 1 where you're pretty excited about how they look on either side of the ball. Their schedule, this is a tough stretch in these first 6 or 7 games leading into London with the Broncos. You have the Cowboys after you go to Miami. But after that, you have the Bengals, who I don't think are going to be very good now that Joe Burrow's out. You have the Panthers. You have, there's some more winnable games on the latter half of the schedule. And so I think they can get to 6 or 7 wins still. I don't feel good about where they've started out. And I could see a scenario where they win 4 games, absolutely. But I'm not ready to predict that just yet.
I'm right with you. And I think I don't think the Jets are a good team, but they are a team that's going to fight. And that's the biggest thing is that Aaron Glenn, I think that the way they rolled over against the Bills was an anomaly, I believe. I think that made Aaron Glenn sick. Hated some of the decision making, which we didn't even get to. We should have talked about that. Like the decision to kick the field goal, the decision to punt the ball. You want to have this. We're the Jets. We never say die. We go. You want to have that culture and that belief. Well, that means you got to be aggressive and you got to say we're never going to say die. We're always going to be going for it. And when you're doing those things, you can't necessarily just punt the ball or kick the field goal. I think that was a mistake. But the Jets are better than the Panthers, who they're going to play. They're even if they lose to Miami in Week 4 Monday night, I think they'll beat the Dolphins at home. They still play the Jags. They still play the Saints. The Patriots aren't the world beaters. Falcons aren't that great. I mean, there's enough teams here that I think the Jets can steal one. But you're probably looking at a 6-win team. I think maybe if everything breaks their way the second half of the year, if they can steal this one against the Bucs, they could get to 7 wins. But I think you're probably 5 if you're bad, and then 6 probably is right around the average there. I think that's probably where you're going to be. I know that's not great, but it is. It's something, right?
Yep. I am looking forward to going to Tampa. I don't know where they are in your press box food rankings, but I am looking forward to the Tampa part of it.
They're 2 behind Dallas. They are elite.
I've been a couple times. Tampa's actually a sneakily fun city out of NFL cities, I would say.
You're going to stay in Clearwater?
Nah, I'm staying in Tampa. But
okay. Last time I stayed in Clearwater.
I have a reservation to go to this Italian restaurant where they do a mozzarella table where they bring the mozzarella over and they make it tableside for you. Ooh. So I'll make sure to send a photo of that to you and make you jealous. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm covering Giants again this week. Giants-Chiefs Sunday night. That was a mistake. I did not know that. But I'll be in Miami with you, so we'll be there at Joe's Stone Crab. Get the table ready. So I'm looking forward to that one. All right, Zach, this was an absolute blast, dude. I appreciate it. That's going to do it for Jets Final Drive. Thank you guys so much for watching us across all of the platforms. If that's X, if that is SMY, if that is Facebook. If you guys are watching us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to SMY's YouTube channel just because you can get all of the digital content that's coming your way. That's the Putback with Ian Begley. I don't know if you really want to watch it right now just because they're in a little bit of a slump, but all of our Mets content and all of our Mets programming. We have additional Jets programming from Jets pregame live, Jets postgame live. All of that stuff, Yankee stuff, Knicks stuff, all of it is right there on SMY's YouTube channel. So, guys, make sure you subscribe because you're absolutely going to love it. If you want more of me, you can get it because Jets Mailbag, my show with Janae Coakley, is coming later this week. We are actually in the process right now of compiling questions for the show. It's basically we spend the week getting all of your questions, and then we answer all of your questions on the Jets Mailbag. So if you want to supply them, tweet them to me at Connor_J_Hughes, also Janae Coakley, also SNY Jets or SNY. That's where we get all of those questions. If you want more of Zach, you can have some of him as well, right? Zach, Flight Plan, part of the Badlands family, with you and Tim McMaster. That's twice a week, right? You guys are?
Yep, we go the day after the game. We go on Thursday or Friday previewing the game. I believe we'll be doing it on Thursday this week. So we're on all the podcast apps as well.
There you go, and that's the same thing with us. All right, so for Zack Rosenblatt, also our production team of Brian Pincus, Sam Kendall, Corey Palmer, and executive producer Jeff Goldman, who has been in my ear this entire show. Thank you guys so much for joining this episode of Jets Final Drive. We will see you next week on Monday after the Jets maybe beat the Buccaneers, but probably not.